All right. And there's also in the yoga pose, there's the places that are slightly more dynamic in your body. And then there's places where you're receiving more, right? Where you're not quite so active. Like, so one of the places in your yoga poses that need not to overwork, that are easy to overwork, are your joints, right? We tend to like really try to engage. We have we right above and below the joints and things like that. And that's one of the places where, no, you've got to let the emptiness of your joints kind of be like the way you appreciate the color of the changing leaves, right? And then there are other places that are still green, that are like working and being more alive. And there's a constant back and forth in poses like that. All right, sit up straight and tall. Start to feel more rather than less. So what do you mean by feeling more? These are all the things that I hope each time you hear that instruction, right, you start going, what does it mean by feeling more rather than less? Right? Where do you go to start to be more alert? And I mean, alertness isn't just furrowing your brow, right? Like, focus isn't just focusing your mind, right? In the beginning, you're trying to allow more. You're trying to sit with enough structure, right? But you're trying to allow the other dimensions, the other places in you. And so I hope you figured out that if you squeeze or try too hard in poses, you end up not doing as much yoga. If you don't do enough work, if there isn't enough green in the changing tree, right, then you're also not doing as much yoga. So as you sit here, excuse me, I got a tickle. As you sit here and feel, so like if you can't see, like I like to, when I'm first centered in the beginning, before I'm making it too meditative, right? I want to do some things that allow me to feel more symmetry, right? So right now I've got my hands on each of my knees. If I had armrests, I'd put it on each of my armrests, but I would try to make it a little more equal, just like I would try to make it that I'm sitting equally on my sitting bones. Like, so I always sit more into my right sitting bone because I have scoliosis. So when I'm sitting, I try to, at least in the beginning, try to set it up where I feel equally on each sitting bone. Each leg, so I'm already, and then each foot on the foot pedal. So I'm already trying to be a little bit symmetrical, because structure, some sort of alignment and structure, helps you receive more of the quieter energy that you have in your body. More of it comes through. Prana will respond to alignment. It'll respond to structure as long as that structure isn't too prickly or isn't too fierce. So as you allow, and remember I keep saying the energy of allowing is like a door opener. And it's just for within your body. You don't have to allow the rest of the world, people in the world. You just allow that there's a relationship between, not only between where your body is and the rest of the room, but between you and the universe. It's even deeper. So I can't exactly see how I'm connected to the universe. It'll never appear before my eyes, but I can allow it. And then I can allow it into some semblance of structure. So start to become more aware of your feet and your sitting bones. and where each shoulder is. Dang. Each sitting bone is. Each shoulder. Balance your head over your neck. Soften your jaw. Each side, your temples, both temples. Relax the skin on your forehead. Notice the texture of the quiet that surrounds you. Start now to differentiate where your feet are, where your sitting bones are again. Start to lift up through your chest. Broaden across the back ribs. Lift slightly under the collarbone. So now your action and your will are coming online. A little bit more, but you're trying to keep the stillness of what came from allowing. And notice your breath. Your breath touches both the stillness and the action. Remember in previous classes, I've talked about the top and bottom of the inhalation. Your breath has both the movement and action and the stillness, both the green still on the leaves and the changing color. Keep your tongue in your lower palate. The flow of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. There is quiet and there is action in every yoga pose. Repose. Refeel. Good, and then release. Take your sternum up over your chin down and over your sternum. So this is a dynamic action. Lifting your sternum up and dropping your chin. But not a hardening action. It's dynamic, the lift and the drop. And then, and this will say that, and then just feel the breath into each nostril, into each lung. Be connected to each sitting bone and to each foot. Good, and then raise your head up with release, raise your head up with closed eyes, open your eyes. So I want I want you to I want us to lift our chest a few times. So the thing about this lift and drop like this is that it is really dynamic. But I want you to notice. So as you sit quietly, you're sitting quietly, and that's what we did when we were centering. Our chest was lifted, doing this. But then we changed it just a little bit and made it a little bit more dynamic. So this is one of what's called a bandha, which in yoga, there are certain core things that happen through the core channel that you can do that actually supposedly connect more of your energy together, right? It lines up what are called nadis. This is just, geez, really got a tickle. This is just, the nadis are supposed to be like energy channels. Think of them like acupuncture, like the meridians or something. And certain positions make them come more online, right? But I just want you to notice, so as you're sitting quiet, remember we're going through the metaphor of that there's green on the leaves and then there's changing colors, right? The life is of that color is changing some, right? And as it changes, as the leaf changes its life arc, it changes its color, right? So as you sit quietly, but then when you activate your sternum more and drop your chin, right? When you activate your sternum, notice how obviously your rib cage becomes more engaged, right? That's clear, right? You drop down, your chin is dropped, right? And then don't do that action. Drop your chest again and just go back to neutral. And notice the difference. Notice the difference between when you engage, lift your sternum and drop your chin. So try that again, right? And then don't. And notice how one is slightly more dynamic, right? So it turns out that meditators and pranayama practitioners in seated pranayama believe that the structure that's happened when they're meditating and breathing, from lifting the chest, the sternum, and dropping the chin, is better structure to receive the breath, right? And so just notice, remember, we come here on the shoulder. So all of us, including me, are people, yogis have been to these places that we're traveling to more profoundly than either you or I. And so we come here knowing that there's been company here. So the difference between just sitting really still and lifting the sternum and dropping the chin is a difference that other yogis before you have made a big deal about. It will always be up to you how good of a student you choose to be. It'll be whether you decide to pay attention to the little differences, not just the big ones. Good, and then drop your chest, just feel. So it turns out that a lifted chest is going to be in almost every yoga pose, partly because yogis think it distributes energy better, which it does, right? And so the integration of action of your will, of the harder of in the metaphor of the green part of the tree right now, that's easier than it is to allow the quieter energy to be part of the overall tree, right? So working hard in poses is easier than working intelligently in poses. It's easier than working the quiet energy too, right? So one of the ways that you can increase, so everyone sit up again, we're going to start doing asana part one. Right? And so getting equal to side is one of the things we've already done, right? And this vertical lift up through the chest, that one's easier, Or like, you know, Gita Iyengar, was quite a yogi, says it's easier to teach people how to move this way than this way in their poses, right? And what's really important is to notice the difference. So let's start with something kind of easy. So however you can, in whatever ways you can, bring your hands together, right? And so what I want you to start to do now, I like to teach from the microcosm to the macrocosm, because like from a little place in the body to the whole pose, because you and I, because we're in a chair class, right? We won't be able to do like the full standing pose or the inversion or the whole big movement. So we're always going to have to learn more from the microcosm, the smaller part to the bigger part. And so I want you to, like, with your hands, however they are, I want you to differentiate two actions, right? One, I want you to lengthen up through your fingers, whatever that looks like for you. So again, if your fingers don't work and respond as well, don't go crazy trying to make them work. That would be the hardening that you don't want to do, right? That would be the shutting off of the quieter space. But try to lengthen up through your fingers, like you're making your hands longer and taller, right? And then at the same time, spread across the palm. So you've got two different directions moving in your hands, right? You've got the lengthening and the broadening. So even if I've got my hands like this and they don't go together, I can still lengthen out through my knuckles, right? And broaden out through my palms. Now, for some of us that have more one side of the body that works better than the other side, the key is not to try to work harder. The key is to try to get the one side that doesn't work as well to communicate with the other side. But I just want you to get the idea of right in the same space that we usually take for granted, there are two different directions happening, right? And then just go back to putting your hands together like you wouldn't, like you're not paying attention, right? And that's cool, that's fine, right? But now you're actually adding the two directions. And notice what changes, not just what's in your hands, right? And then release it again. So don't worry if you're not being able to feel a difference. This will just take practice. Repetition is your friend. It's your teacher. It's not something to get bored with. So again, my hands are just together. Now I'm going to add the two directions and watch what it does in my forearms. I can watch it physically. My forearms change. As I broaden across the palms, my inner edge of my shoulder blades change. I know to connect that to my sitting bones because I'm a yogi, right? I start letting the extra action in my hands start to be reflected and noticed in my whole body. Now, as you're doing this, are you holding your breath? Are you pressing your tongue against the roof of your mouth? As you're engaging in subtler awareness, are you locking down your breath? And over time, at first, that's okay. Over time, you have to start integrating more and more and more. Good, and then release. So what I just tried to go through there, and I know it's kind of some wait, this seems so, the actions are so little. This is the microcosm of the pose. In every place in your body, the energy is moving in every direction. And it's happening and amplified on inhalation. And it's directed towards the world on exhalation, right? So again, we're going from the microcosm, go back to your hands together, whatever you're gonna do, right? And remember, we're focusing on the action in the hands, but remember, before we focus on the action of the hands, remember last week and the week before I was saying, bring your hands together, but let your hands reflect your inner thighs and your inner heels, each the tip of each shoulder blade. So you start to let something be connected. Now start to open the palms lengthen the fingers, add action, lift the chest, keep the tongue soft, keep the breath coming in and out of each nostril. This will be reflected in every single yoga pose. This idea of vertical, horizontal, of lift, of drop, right? So you're lifting up the front side of your body and dropping down the back side in this pose. Good, and then release. I know that, and then bring your hands in. I know this is a lot of like inward, and it's hard to stay attentive with it, right? But this is the inside of all your actions, right? So if you think about it, inhale, take your arms wide. All you've done, and remember we're opening here, out through the wrists, we're hitting down through the sitting bones and up through the top of your head, right? And then drop and go back to here and know that this way and this way is happening in your hands. And then inhale, and now it's gone this way and this way, right? You just have a bigger. So now you're trying to get this to go. You're trying to hit down through your sitting bones, stretch out to the top of your head, pick a point in the center of your chest, and go off to the sides and breathe. Good, and then release. Take your hands down. So we're going to go back to here again, right? So now you're like, but now, like the last iteration of this, I want you to watch your palm. Let your palms together, or hands together, whatever they're doing, however they're doing, be a reflection of your whole body, right? And then I want you to take your arms wide. I want you to hit down through your sitting bones, down to your inner heels. Broaden out. Now I want you not just to end at the terminus of your body, but I want you to extend out beyond your fingertips by drawing back towards the midline, your shoulder blades slightly coming together. Do all that, hit down through your sitting bones, connect to your heels, and breathe. Good, and then release and come on down. So you've got this going this way, this going this way. Now I want to do it one more time again, and I want you to add a couple. Again, remember this way's easier, right? To keep track of. This way takes more instruction. You're going to see that a lot of my instruction is about vertical extension about horizontal extension because vertical's easier, right? Okay, so now inhale, take your arms wide, hit down through your sitting bones and go up. Pick a point in the center of your chest. Go out through both arms, keeping the shoulder blades moving back this way. But now broaden across your sacrum. Right? Keep your sitting bones farther apart and broaden across your heels. Feel each side of your head. Breathe. Good, and then release. Take your your left arm up, pardon me. Now hit down, rise up. So vertical is pretty apparent here. Good, and then drop down. Inhale, take your other arm up. So again, you're stretching beyond your fingertips, dropping your shoulder blade down and rising up, okay? And then come on down. So that one makes vertical more obvious, right? The straight up and down this way. So now inhale, take up. So remember when we did all these classes the last few weeks about so your left arm's up, but press to your right sitting bone and your right heel. Think about that. That's like making you spreading you out to horizontal a little bit more. Good, and then release. Take the right arm up, right? be more aware of the left sitting bone and the left heel, that instruction by its very nature, and then down, takes what was just an action this way and asks you to move to the other side of your body, go across your body, and also hit down. So those instructions are actually more complicated than they appear, right? So again, take your left arm up, drop the shoulder blade down, go beyond your fingertips, spread the sitting bones, spread across the sacrum or low back, and be aware of each heel. And then start to come over to your right. But I want you to lengthen here, but I'm going to instruct you to also lengthen the right side of your body. So you're lengthening here because that's physical, that's obvious. But I need you to bring more awareness. Now, as you're going over to the right, I want you to be more aware of your left sitting bone. Good, because that's horizontal. And then come on down. And then go up with your right arm. Start to come over, right? Stretch that side. So this is lengthening. This way is less balance for me, so I'm using my chair. I'm pressing down as I'm going over to my left. I'm pressing down through my right hip. I'm lengthening not just this side, but this side. And to do that, I'm hitting down through my sitting bones. Good, and then come on up. So back to here. Whatever it is. Feel the multi-directional of this and this in your hand. Bring it to your chest. Broaden across your sacrum. Lengthen and lift up through your chest. Feel all of that. Feel each sitting bone and feel the inner edge of each heel. And then release. So now it gets tricky. Take your left arm up. Exhale, take it on the outside of your right leg. Figure out where this hand should be. Because for weeks we've been talking about balance. So now what the heck? We're twisting now, but this dynamic is still occurring, the up and across, right? So you inhale, lift up. So that means hits down with your sitting bones and lift under your collarbones. But notice I'm not saying just lift your head. I'm telling you to lift under the collarbones. And it's plural. I'm trying to get you to be on both sides of your collarbones, right? Broaden across the chest. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, revolve. So once you start twisting, the midline gets harder to see. So I want you to take your right floating rib back towards your right, to your left hip. So you go back to the midline, hit down through your sitting bones, stretch up to the top of your head and make the twist increase. Good, and then come on back to center. So what I'm trying to show you is that this fundamental dynamic is happening in all the poses, right? Take your right arm up. Remember, be in your whole body, right? Exhale, bring it off around the side. Figure out where you need to be for safety, right? So already, once I turn, my attention goes towards the action, like the green leaves on the tree, right? But I got to stay aware of the evolving color, which means time, as my awareness is going this way, I got to take time to feel the quiet and the connection through the quiet on the back side of the pose. Then I'm going to lift the chest, lift under the collarbones. That makes my shoulder blades go down and my chest lift, right? Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. But I know, and if I really feel my twist, I'm leaking energy right out through this rib cage, right out through my left side of my rib cage. So I'm going to pretend I'm going to draw a line from this rib cage back to this hip. In other words, I'm going to go back across my body from this rib cage to this hip so I can feel taller this way. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Inhale, expand in every direction. Exhale and lengthen your spine down through your sitting bones and up to the top of your head on the exhalation. Good, and then come on back to center. Be in the center. My point is, I'm trying to show you that the instructions, when you're doing these poses, you were already doing a lot of this stuff. You just weren't necessarily aware of it. But you and I, doing adaptive yoga, have to be aware of how the poses work more, right? How they open you up than a traditional student has to be. So I'm going to let someone in again here. So again, so now just notice when you don't pay attention, just take your right arm outside your left arm outside your right leg. And you just twist like you're thinking, grind harder, right? But where's all this other awareness, right? You can just do it without thinking and think it's just an outer action, right? Which that's not yoga, that's just twisting. And then come on back. And so what I want you to do is, as we take the hand on the other side again here in a second, I want you to really let the depth of the pose start to emerge from the quiet part of you into your awareness. So your left hand goes outside your right leg. You smartly listen to your quiet, to the changing leaves, to grab your chair in the right place. Instead of just throwing it away, like, wait, I'm going to go down through my sitting bones, but I'm going to make sure it's both my sitting bones. I'm going to lift under the collarbones, right, to get this activation, right? And then I'm going to exhale and elongate. As I twist to the right, I'm wanting to keep awareness in my left side even more, because I want to keep the horizontal connection as I'm moving, right? Hitting down and rising up. So inhale and expand, and exhale and revolve. Inhale, let your chest cavity broaden in every direction. Exhale, hit down through your sitting bones and up to the top of your head. And that'll make you twist more. Good, and then come on back to center. Be in the center. Come forward. So lengthening your spine, right? Getting elongation of your spine is almost in every yoga pose, right? So it's an action that is, so if there's a lift in your chest, but the more you can let there be space in your back instead of collapse. When I'm collapsed, I'm trying to exaggerate the collapse, right? And I try to move my arms, they aren't as expressive. When I can elongate my spine and move my arm, something else happens. So here, we're just practicing being forward, whether it's onto a table or onto your knees, right? But I really want you to take serious hitting down through your sitting bones and lifting up through the collarbones. And that's just the outside of what I want you to do, right? So I want you to lengthen your spine. But then notice what happens. Instead of just like thinking about lengthening this way, broaden across the collarbones as you do it. So you're hitting down, you're lengthening, and then you broaden. As soon as you start to broaden, does anyone feel their shoulder blades go down their back body? And that actually feeds the sitting bones and lifts the chest? Yeah. So some of you, I can tell, believe it or not, are tense in the inside of your mouth, right? So you got to try to keep that supple. Good, and then release. One of the reasons why I can tell some of you are tensing inside your mouth is because I know to look for it because I do it myself. So a lot of the instructions are coming from what I tend to do in my old habits. I just pass on as instructions. So come forward again. Again, this idea of lengthening your spine, it's pretty much a good idea, especially if you sit a lot. Remember, they say sitting's the new smoking, which, by the way, that kind of offends me because I can't stand. And so it's like, come on, really? Don't tell me I'm smoking a pack of heaters every day I go through my day. Don't like that so much. But one of the things they're saying is all the compression that happens on your organs and your posture from sitting all the time is not healthy for the body, right? It's not like smoking, for God's sakes. But I want you to start elongating your spine more. You know, and whoever said it's like the new smoking, clearly they weren't in a wheelchair, right? I mean, that's the part our culture tries to define health in terms of their own bodies, right? In terms of an able body. And guess what? Health for me is different than health for an able body, right? And it's the same. And you shouldn't use images of what can't happen or make connections, right? So again, I'm sitting on my sitting bone, I'm lengthening my sitting bone, lifting my chest, broadening across my collarbones. But now I want you to, as you're elongating your spine, which I'm telling you is like the new non-smoking, right? Broaden across your sacrum and connect to your inner heels. Now take a breath, like as your awareness and focus includes now the length and a broadening, the length this way, hitting back through the sitting bones and lengthening the chest, a broadening across the collarbones and across the sacrum, and a connection to the inner heels. Now take a breath. Remember, prana, your life force, follows your consciousness or your presence in your body more than it follows your breath. So let your awareness of your whole body lead and your breath fill in and inflate where your awareness was. Good, and then release. So hopefully your back feels a little more length, right? Because when you're twisting, it compresses. You can't help it, right? All right, so now I want you to inhale and take your arms wide. Keep your arms up this way, down through your sitting bones, broaden across your sacrum, broaden across each heel. Feel each side between your shoulder and your ear. Take a few breaths. Good, and then come on back down. So I want you to, we're gonna do this again in a second, but I want you to try, the instruction is gonna be, once your arms when your arms are wide, and if those that it's easy can even take their legs wider, right? So take your knees farther apart. But you know, if it's not that easy, don't worry about it right now. It's not the main focus right now. So I'm taking my knees a little farther apart. I don't want to lose my base though. So this time when I inhale, take my arms wide and stretch out to the top of my head. Well, take your arms wide. Now I want you to fill the whole room, like you're flying in the whole room. Now notice what you have to do. And I don't just mean imagine, I mean literally, from the center, from the trunk of the tree, go into the whole room. To make that even more, hit down through your sitting bones, stretch up to the top of your head, broaden from the center of your chest out, and fill the whole room. Take a breath to fill the whole room, and exhale to expand into the whole room. Good, and then take your arms down. Gotta tell you, when my arms are wide and I talk, there's a lot of strain on my diaphragm. So it's a good thing you're not having to talk right now, because that's like, whoa, there's a lot of work. So right now we're resting, you know why? Because I need to rest after doing that and talking, right? Okay, One more time. I want you to fill the whole room, but I want you to do it from the inside of you to the outside into empty space. And I want you to realize that this has to happen at every point in your pose. All right? All right, so inhale. Take your arms wide. Again, all the way across, all the way up, spreading the sitting bones, down to the sitting bones, down to the heels, broaden the heels, both sides of your head. Fill the room. Take a breath into that filling. Good, and then release. So now we're going to go over to the left, to the right. So if you think about, and I'm here, so notice what I'm doing in my chair. I'm making sure that I'm on my wheelchair and staying very sturdy here, right? And so you already know that I usually say when you go over to the right, you're aware here and you're aware there. You have to work to be aware there to make it even. There's more awareness here. You have to work to make it here. And now I want you to elongate, keep your sitting bone down and elongate through your spine out to the top of your head. Now, when you take your arm up, look what's been added, right? But as you realize the across energy, don't lose the lengthening. As you do both, notice how this part of your rib cage comes into your pose, right? As you elongate this way and elongate this way, your spine lengthens. Take a breath. Exhale into more expansion. Good, and then release. Be in the center. Go over to the other side. Again, for me, going over to what I'm calling my left is actually more risky for me because my balance is different. So I got to be extra careful to pay attention this way. All right, so I want you, and I don't do the pose quite as well. I want to elongate. And then I want to open my chest. So as I elongate, I hit down through my sitting bones. As I make a horizontal expansion, now take your arms wide. I want it coming right out of my spine. And once it comes out of your spine, it comes out of your legs too. It goes through your legs too. Good. And then come on up. So that's part of the insight of what I want to re-emphasize in this class is that the spine wants to send energy in multiple directions, right? And it doesn't discriminate between limbs. Like it wants to fill the whole vessel. Your habits may be more towards your arms, right? Or towards your legs, probably your arms. So again, I want you to go this way. Go over to your right. You're elongating. You're opening. You're keeping awareness on the back hip. You're lengthening this side of your body to help the spine elongate. The arm goes up. There's more obvious this energy now. Connection to the back hip, right? Now, I want you to take your arm straight over your head. Now, check it out. Isn't it way harder to go here and back through the back hip? Guess what? That's exactly where the yoga pose is going to actually be aware. So when your arm's over your head like this, right, you need to be grounding here even more, right? Opening this way anyway, right? It was easier when your arm was here to see it. Your arm's here. Good, and then come on back up. So we're going to do it the other way. So this idea of your spine expanding in every direction, right? In every direction, right? Doesn't have to follow your limbs, right? So here you go over to the other side, right? So you're gonna go over, I'll use just my wheelchair, not my chair here. I gotta be careful here because I wanna fall out of the chair this way, right? So I'm elongating, I'm opening, and there's my arm being an expression of that opening, right? I want you to take your arm this way, but don't lose any of this opening as you're more in a straight line. So there needs to be even more awareness in the rib cage, more awareness in the right hip, more awareness in the right knee and the right heel, even though my energy and exertion is following my spine. Horizontally, I'm opening. Good, and then come on back up. So I've been, I do a lot of weird trying to exploration of poses, and I do them, and I try to understand, I'm not someone that's that great of a ancient text scholar or a big studier of all the Sanskrit stuff, but I do try to learn strange things, and try to appreciate, not learn, but appreciate it. So in a lot of the drawings of certain Hindu gods and mythical figures, a lot of them have a lot of arms and extra legs. Okay, so I want you to go over to the right side. We're gonna do the same thing again. And I showed you this. So the elongation is like this. You open that way. And then I asked you to go like this, but not lose the cross energy, right? So you know what I've been doing lately? I've been thinking I have more than one set of arms. My physical arm is here, and I still have an arm coming up from the shoulder that way. So as I elongate, I feel like I could projecting energy through a limb there. When I do that and do it with strength, my awareness of my base and down increases, which is part of what I'm trying to get you to see. Good, and then release. So anything I can do where my mind tries to see more aspects of the pose, I know it's not imagination if my pose starts to feel more full. And I hope you're in this class beginning to study when I'm saying when something becomes yogic, when something becomes more full. That's when you can tell you're using more than your imagination. So go over to the other side. And again, we're elongating. We're opening with the arm. This is the easy opening, right? Because it's so physical. But when you take your arm over your head, how do you make sure that is still happening? The elongation and the rolling open. Down through the back hip, the right heel. Opening across here, lengthening this direction. Good, and then come on up. Sit in the center. So what you don't really know exactly, and I wish I could demonstrate the whole pose for you, we're doing a version of a standing pose called Parsvakonasana, which is you end up having your legs wide, and I wish I could show you, right? Your legs wide, but then you keep this leg in the right angle, you come down, and the whole side stretches. It's called side angle stretch. Like this whole side lengthens. But it turns out in the full standing pose, right? The key to the pose is keeping awareness, especially in the front leg and the back leg, but it's rotating this up towards the ceiling, even though your line is a straight line. And by the way, this is one of the, we're gonna do it one more time, don't worry, Bo. This is one of the hardest standing poses. It takes a lot of energy. It taxes the nervous system because you're in a littler space. You're in more of a straight line, but you're being asked to revolve open as you're in a straight line, right? So it's a real physical pose, and it's hard to hold very long. So, but what I in the pose, right? Just you don't have to do it right now because we're going to do it in a second. In the pose, when you're trying to imagine this leg was in a right angle this way, and this leg was straight up this way. In the pose, Mr. Iyengar says, this right up here is the brain of the pose, meaning, and you're supposed to roll it up towards the ceiling. I've been teaching you this action, right? By showing you an elongating action and a horizontal opening. And in that pose, because Iyengar says, this is the intelligent part of the pose, because this is the thing that would never happen if you were just stretching your side, right? The difference between just stretching and yoga is that counteractions are occurring. All right, so we're going to do it one more time, knowing that you're doing a really hard standing pose, right? Called Parsvakonasana. All right, so come over to the right. Remember, we took all this time to actually get all these actions, but connected. So this leg in the pose would have been back out straight. This leg would have stayed bent, right? But the brain of the pose is going to be here, which means this is the part that will fill the legs, right? So now you're elongating your spine. The way you teach the pose is you have everyone take the arm up like this in Parsvakonasana. So you get them to stay open here. And then very consciously, you take your arm over your head, but you keep this open. But this open is what feeds your legs still. So you're over this way, opening and rolling your chest from the brain of the pose to make sure it stays in your legs. Good, and then release. So I can't tell exactly what you can see and feel through the damn Zoom. Okay, but so just watch for a second. If I just stretch, right? I'm exaggerating a little bit. You can see that I'm stretching, but my pose isn't as alive. Watch what happens when I bring my spine online. Can you guys see that and feel that? Like when I start to engage the whole body, that's why horizontal extension matters so much, right? So it brings life to the pose, right? So we have to do the other side, right? We've done this side. Someone nod your head. Whatever, we'll do it again. Go over like this. Elongate, keep awareness in the back side. Feel the straight line. Open this way to keep the awareness in the back leg. Keep grounded in the front leg. Elongate and open. Breathe. Good, and then come on back up. We'll do twice on this second. I think we're one side heavy. So again, I'm not just thinking about going the long way. That would just be that'd be stretching. My arm goes over my head and I'm rolling open. As I roll open, I extend down through both my back leg. My arm's still coming up this way. My arm's over my head. Good, and then come on up. Sit in the center for a second. We gotta do one more time that way. And then go back over again. All right, arms, so the elongation meets the horizontal. Help that to fill your legs. Remember, your spine wants its fullness. We don't want sitting to be the new smoking. Good, and then come on back up. Whew. I don't know about you, but I'm working crazy hard. I'm getting kind of hot. So sit in the center. So we're going to elongate the spine again. Now you're elongating and broadening, right? So you're hitting down through your sitting bone, stretching out to the top of your head, broadening across the sacrum, making sure there's space between your shoulder blades. Mm-hmm. You're grounding down on you're making sure not grounding, but you're grounding but not grinding. You're pressing down on your legs and elongating your spine. So we're trying to like bring centering back to your spine. Take a couple of breaths. You've earned them. Grounding breaths, especially on the exhalation. Think about or integrate that you need to move in multiple directions to be dynamic. But in order to move in multiple directions, it's going to take all the colors on the trees right now. Not just the green, not just the ones that are closer to the end. You need all the colors. Breathe into all the colors on these next few breaths. There's lots of dimensions of you. You need them all. Good, and then Shavasana, so get in a position. Dang it, I don't have my bolster nearby, otherwise I put my arms up on a bolster. So get as symmetrical as you can. I just want to take it's hard, and there's enough people on the screen where it's hard for me to see everybody, so I'm trying to take a quick look at everybody. All right, get set for Shavasana, which means symmetrical. Symmetrical matters. So I'm going to start by doing that for me to feel side by side. I want to make sure there's no strain in my shoulders. So sitting Shavasana is like a really curious one, right? So I'm going to go from here to here. I like touching the tips of my fingertips if I can, but truly, it doesn't matter exactly what your hand positions are. It matters that there's ease. I have long enough arms where I can get them on my legs. If I want even more ease, I put them on a bolster, right? So get where you feel supported, because the sensation of support is integral to Shavasana. So let yourself be held up by the chair, by the support. Don't just fall directly into the support. Feel the support and let yourself expand like mist or steam coming off of hot pavement when it rains. So that floating feeling that arises is part of what's happening in Shavasana. Don't just feel where you are in your body, but feel and allow the space around you. Just differentiate your body a little bit. So feel where your ankles are, your knees are, your hips, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists. Keep your jaw soft, the inside of your mouth soft, tongue in the lower palate. Relax around the temples. There is nourishment here. It's not always in the people around us, but it's always here. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. A slightly deeper inhalation, a slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes and then close them again, and then choose to open them for the week.